Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 St. Thomas Football Preseason Media Day. My name is Kelsey Whaley. I am the Director of Athletic Communications here at St. Thomas. Joining us today for our Preseason Media Day press conference are head coach Glenn Caruso, junior linebacker Jon Bunce, junior defensive back Yusef Leak, junior wide receiver Andrew McElroy, and junior offensive lineman Alec Rasmussen. We will start with opening statements from Coach, and then you guys can take it away.
Number one, grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing with that time, and appreciate you being here at St. Thomas, covering our program. About a week and a half into fall camp now, and excited about the opportunity to kick off the 2023 season. But you guys have interviewed coaches many times, and you know that before we think about the games and the opener and all that kind of stuff, we have to focus on task at hand. So midst of fall camp right now, I think last year provided us with an unbelievable opportunity of the type of work that needs to be done, the type of trust that needs to be built, the type of togetherness that needs to be grown in order for us to do what we've done. And one of the many, many reasons I love this team and the players on this team is because they understand that each year, even though we may have had our fair share of success in the past, that it's back to square one. And that's where we are right now, and looking forward to continuing to build it together over the next 3 weeks and then the ensuing 12 weeks. That's it.
Okay. Anyone? You may start. If you would please introduce yourself and who you are representing as you ask questions, it would be much appreciated.
Yep, Rachel Blount, Star Tribune. Glenn, what have you learned the first couple of go-rounds through Pioneer League about what it takes to be successful in this league?
It's a great question, Rach. I think the diversity of the league from coast to coast locationally is also carried through in the diversity of league and how the teams are put together, the talent, the strengths, and the schemes they run. And the number one thing that we learned is you have to be dynamic if you want to be good in this league, because there's so much variance in how people are successful or how people play. And frankly, in our league, so we've now been in it 2 years, there's even 2 teams that we haven't had a chance to play yet. So if we were here 2 years ago, we were talking about, they said, what do you need to learn? And I said, I don't even know what I don't know yet. And we've learned that over the last couple of years. But now with 3 non-conference teams that are brand new and the first 2 conference games being brand new, I think we're in a bit of our old status of you better be comfortable being uncomfortable. But the things that we could learn, I think, in terms of logistics of travel, level of play, I mean, there's some tremendous football that goes on in this league. And if you are not at the top of your game, it's going to be exposed very quickly, and I would say that's probably the number one thing we learned.
Coach, Jeff Wald with Fox 9.
Hey, Jeff.
I don't know how much stock you take into preseason polls. It seems like it's just a lot for us to talk about, but when you see that you guys are favorites in the Pioneer League again this year, just what does that mean to you, given where you've taken this program?
Yeah, I can certainly give the trite coaching answer and say it doesn't mean anything. I think from our point of view, it frankly doesn't change how we work or what we have to do, right? I think from a school's point of view, a university, a department, it speaks to the depth and the breadth that the brand has been able to grow in the last 25 months. It hasn't been that long. But I will say this, Jeff, is that we have been in a position where that's not new to us to be in that spot. Maybe the voters are different, maybe the league is different, maybe the division is different, but the core way that we approach our work, that hasn't changed. And we've been in that spot before, and it's an honor. To be honest with you, the Pioneer League is, there's just so many teams that I think have an opportunity to be great. And it's that same diversity that we just got done talking about that I think gives a lot of teams that chance. And however it is, it's not going to change. It's not going to change how we work. But you're right. I think sometimes it is more for you guys than it is for us, if I'm honest.
Coach Will Hall with Care 11.
Hey, Will.
Curious, you look at your roster. What do you like most about it?
Well, I didn't even realize it, but when Kelsey was just, it was junior, like a lot of our experience, I mean, certainly good talent, but talent comes and goes, and we understand, but our experience and our leadership is still relatively young. Probably wouldn't have answered that the same way 6 minutes ago before I just realized all these guys are juniors and have more to play. But the way that our group was able to be transitioned from the teams and the guys that we had 5 and 6 years ago into the team that we have now. Again, very decidedly young, but still experienced. And at the end of the day, the number one reasons why I love our team is because they're thoughtful and they're selfless and they're willing to give of themselves to each other. I think those are things that will serve them well in life in terms of being a future father, a future husband, a future leader in their community. It just so happens that it seems to be manifesting and winning some football games too.
Question for the players. The first couple of years were about establishing this program at the Division I level. Just learning about what it's like to be in Division I, figuring all that out, and letting people know that St. Thomas has moved up. What is this year about? Does it still feel like more of an establishing at D1 year, or is there another step that you feel like you'll be taking this year?
Whoever answers, could I just ask a favor, move those 2 big microphones in the center to in front of you? Appreciate, sorry about that.
You got it. Who wants to take it?
I can go.
Jonathan, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Or others can move down.
You got it.
I mean, I think we talked about it last night. We were reading our book for the year, but really pursuing excellence, isn't about pursuing excellence. It's about, focusing on the process day in and day out. And I think something we've done really well over the past 2 years is not focus on these big, lofty things in the future, but focusing on day in and day out. We need to be the best football team we can possibly be. I think, going into our first game, playing University of Northern Iowa, the expectation in the locker room was that we were going to win that game. There was no doubt amongst the team of what we were going to do, and that's what we carry through every single game, every single week of practice and moment. So this year, that's the same thing. It's saying every opponent on our schedule, we believe we're going to win that game. We're going to prep for them that way, and we're prepping camp that way. So I think the standard has always been excellence, and the process going through that is still the same. And I'm excited to see where that's going to bring us this year, for sure.
Something to add?
Good job.
I've got a question for you, Seth. Just as a defensive back out of Orlando, how do you hear about a school like St. Thomas? That's not a common pipeline for recruiting.
Yes, I think that's a great question. Just being in the class of COVID, it's tough to find a school when you lose all your other offers, all your other opportunities. So you kind of just go back to the drawing board and look at Twitter, look at different schools, find coaches, contact different coaches, email them. So I actually contacted Coach Dodson, the receiver coach here, got in contact with him, sent him my film, started talking. He asked about my journey in high school football and just about my life, and we just started creating a connection from there. And then got in contact with Coach Caruso, started doing some recruiting seminars like online because we couldn't have visits during that time. It was Zoom. I just fell in love with the program and the culture here, so that was pretty much the process.
Yusef was part of that class, like he alluded to, that wasn't able to get to campus. So you talk about transitioning. I remember our Zoom talk, and after Yusef's, it was probably as honest and heartfelt as I can remember with any recruiting talk. And I said, man, if this is how he presents as a family through a screen, only imagine what he can do in our locker room. It was pretty neat.
Coach, what makes Andrew so special?
I mean, we simply don't have enough time to talk about that. And most people are going to discuss all of the things that I think are quantifiable, that are measurable, that have to do with football. A really sharp man who I trust a lot told me that when your best football players are also your hardest workers and your best people, then you got a shot at something great. And Andrew exemplifies that. Yeah, he's a real good football player. I hope he scores touchdowns and returns kicks, that's wonderful. But the type of man that he is and the journey of the person who's becoming, his leadership, his thoughtfulness, his authenticity, there's not a lot of people that I would say have a full package in every way in terms of leadership when they come to us. And Andrew certainly did. And yet, he works every day. I feel awkward talking about him because he's sitting there. He works tirelessly every day, to Johnny's point, to just get a little bit better. And in a day and an age where superlatives matter and the soundbite is king and the top 10 plays get on, to see a locker room led by these young men that respect and trust the process of small incremental growths every day is, it warms my heart, and Andrew typifies that.
I got a question for either of you Minnesota guys. Pretty big leap that this program, this school took a couple years ago, going from D3 to D1. What's it been like to be, a key part of that process, and not only making the transition, but now it's like this thing got a little better, got better fast. I mean, you guys were successful in a hurry. So what's it been like to go through that whole process?
For sure, it's been a blessing and a privilege to be a part of this transition. Coming in as a freshman in the first year that we had the ability to play these Division I teams has truly been one of the greatest times of my life. And I know for family and friends it speaks the same, it speaks measures. Being from Plymouth, about 15 miles west of here, whenever I'm home in the summer and I'm out wearing something purple, I always have people coming up to me asking me how it's been. So it's great to be within a community and just how nice people are in Minnesota, always asking how things are going. So for us to be so successful, it speaks measures to what this program is, and also just it's exciting to be around people who care so much about the program and such a great alumni program that all care so much. So it's been exciting to be a part of.
Johnny? I'm just going to keep moving mics. You tell me if you can't hear him, okay? All right, you got it? There we go.
Yeah, I think, my first year was the last year of Division III, and the question I always get from people is, what's the transition like? I think the way I answer it the same way is, like, as a football program, we've always pursued excellence and in the same way. So, like, jumping to Division I wasn't like, okay, now we're taking this seriously. And like internally, it's like, at the start of camp practices are 24 periods, flown and going on Thursdays, 18 periods. The game day routine is the same. Like, all of these processes are the same, and we've had to adapt a ton. But I just love how guys who've probably been in the program 12 years ago could come back to practice today and say, wow, I can see the same things that they did when 2012 that they're doing 2023. So that's what I love, is keeping the same core principles throughout the transition. And I think people who have been a part of the program for such a long time see that.
Pat Borsey from InPost.com. It's for Andrew. You're a known quantity now. Everybody's got film on you. Everyone knows what you can do.
Thanks.
I imagine that you're probably, obviously you know that, and you're going to be the focal point of a lot of defenses this year. What are you doing in practice to work on being able to, particularly on your pass patterns, to get free in double coverage, and also to break stuff on kick returns?
Right, thank you. I'd say probably the biggest thing that I'm doing right now is nothing different than what I've been doing in the past years that I've been here. I'd say everything is about the same. Just learning to just grow and keep competing. Practice is great. We have an amazing defense, so that definitely helps. Just being able to play against them every day. Nothing is really different. I mean, our receiving core is outstanding, so you'll see that multiple guys that are out there, like right alongside me, are doing the same things as well. But our room is very solid, so I think we're just going to have a great year altogether.
And just to be clear, Wally is hitting you with things that you're probably going to hitting you with things that you can probably anticipate during the year, and then you have to react to them. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, sir.
What are some of the things that he's doing?
Yeah, so there are plenty of different defensive schemes that we'll see throughout practice. They'll mix up a lot, so it's just a matter of communication between the offense and understanding what we have to do when each different coverage is thrown at us or when the time comes to be able to make adjustments.
To Andrew's point, we talked after the scrimmage the other day, we had a first scrimmage, and we talked about the blessing of competition and the privilege of that, and the fact that we get to go against a really good offense every day in practice and a really good defense every day in practice. And one thing that I think shouldn't go unsaid is our coaching staff. You mentioned Coach Kaczynski, Coach Landry, we mentioned several of them already. Our coaches are not trying to win practice necessarily. They're trying to prepare for what we'll need to do for an arduous group of tests that are coming up. So although you're right, Coach K will throw a lot of things at everybody. You've seen us play, right? I think our coaches do a great job of simplifying it down and to the least common denominator of what is this going to translate to when we actually have to play someone else.
Coach, what are your,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bill.
Coach, what are your thoughts on this year's schedule?
I love this year's schedule. I'll tell you what, Phil Eston, I think, did a fantastic job. And when a couple of years ago, so we've done this at other places where we've seen the transition and how the schedule has to build. As I look at it, I would say we're not even halfway through phase one, which is a little more than 5 years, and there's 3 phases, how I would see it. At the end of the first phase, of which we're not halfway through yet, you would hope that a schedule presents much like a schedule does this year. I think the way things came together with having a regional opponent and Black Hills having a national, maybe a bigger footprint school in Harvard, in my opinion, one of the country's great cities, and I'll get back to that in a second. And then another regional test of a proven team that has done this at the FCS level for a longer period of time than we have, a much longer, and that's South Dakota. Not to mention our children were born in the little hospital in South Dakota, and we enjoyed our time there thoroughly with the people we got to meet in the program that we got to raise there. So the way that the non-conference came together, I thought was great. To Rachel's point earlier, the footprint is massive. We know that. And you can do that in football. You might not be able to do that in every sport. But being the only conference, the only Division I conference in the entire nation, that's border to border and coast to coast, to be able to bring our team to some of these spots. I mean, we'll get on a plane. Yes, we'll play every year 5 or 6 games right there. And maybe of the 5 or 6 that are on the road, you might drive to a Drake or something like that. We get to get on a plane and show our young men. This year it's San Diego and Boston, and last year it was, we'll go to Stetson, and so New York last year. I think that's part and parcel of the education and the experience that we're able to provide. And that experience is what I would expect to be the ultimate in college football. There are several things that people can point to in our program and say, well, they're not there yet, and they're not there yet. And yeah, I told you years ago, it's a process. We'll get there eventually. We might not be there right now. But the chance to be able to have a program, proud program here, that waves a flag for St. Thomas and bring that coast to coast, especially with that Boston game, I'll tell you, it makes me nervous, though, because I would like to see, you guys can do the research. I don't have time to do the research. You guys can do it. But I don't know if there's another college football team in the country where their first 5 opponents are opponents that they didn't play last year. That's kind of unique and a little just the way it all worked out. This is year 1 of a 2-year rotation for the non-conference. And then the 2 teams that I alluded to earlier that we didn't play last year are at the front end of the schedule. So we're going to be in the second half of the season before we play an opponent that's known. And that's really unique too.
A question for Alec. The first couple of years, you guys had an opportunity to show the nation at the D1 level what St. Thomas football is all about. What are some of the qualities that you wanted to show? What did you want to establish as the identity for the program, and how do you advance that in year 3?
Thank you. That's a good question. I would say the last couple of years, we just wanted to show that we're a really hardworking team. We're continuously just always progressing is the biggest thing. We never settle with where we're at. You can see that as we've transitioned from D3 to D1, that we're just continually trying to better ourselves as a program and as people and as men among our group. Continuing to bring in classes of just good people and continuing to grow them as players, because it's difficult to teach lots of people how to be good men. So Coach he always talks about, he brings in good people and we continue to show them what the program's all about. So just continuing to start back at the beginning every year and work our way from there. But I think the biggest characteristics that we're trying to show is just we're a hardworking team and we always are doing the little things right on and off the field.
Doesn't hurt when good people are also 6'7", 306 pounds from down the road too, but he's right.
Owen Larson, Time Media. For Yusef and Jonathan, what are some things that you're hoping to gain from these preseason matches coming up?
I would say it's just a great opportunity to play teams like Harvard and South Dakota and Black Hill State, more nationally known teams. It's just a great opportunity for the university, honestly, to just showcase what we're all about, our culture, our talents, our beliefs, and hopefully we finish with a win and showcase the university.
I think it's great competition. I think Yusef said it well. We're excited and we're ready to put our best foot forward and work that week of practice and then the game on Saturday. So.
With no further questions, thank you everyone for coming to today's Media Day. Any last thoughts from Coach or the players before we end?
I'll just end the way we started, just grateful that you guys took the time to come here. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in this amazing town, and for you guys to spend the day with us at the University of St. Thomas is something we don't take lightly, so thank you very much.
I guess before we're done, can you just give kind of a general synopsis of what camp looks like, just from how many practices, just leading up to opening kickoff, just kind of what the schedule looks like overall?
Absolutely. So we came in a little over a week ago. In general, you get 3 weeks of fall camp in general. There's a day off in there, and of which we're on the physical day off today, for instance, per week. And then you get game week. So if you look at it, you're going to have about 28 days from when you come into camp, plus or minus, to get your practices in. And the beginning, it ramps up, so there's an acclimatization schedule where you start with a certain gear, a lighter gear, helmets, and then you move into a partial gear, and then you get into full gear. But for us, I think we've learned a lot. I don't think I did a tremendous job as a head coach in the first year. If I'm being really critical of myself, which I think I should, I think we had to learn a different way to practice as the schedule expanded. And I don't mean the in-season schedule, the preseason schedule. So it got longer. I don't think I did a very good job, but we do have some really sharp people around us. Our strength staff, our medical staff, our administration, all of who have some really good experience at this level. And we were able to make some adjustments. And every single one of the guys mentioned a portion of this, is that we might not always be the flashiest or fanciest, but we're always the most process-oriented, and we learn pretty well. And so I think we took a nice jump forward in how we prepared the minds and the bodies from year 1 to year 2. And I think we also went back to the drawing board and found ways to be a little bit more efficient, specifically with how our later camp goes. But right now, we're in like day 10 of 28, so we're still at the beginning of the journey. Anything else?
Yeah, Glenn, you probably have a pretty good idea of who's going to start, but are there still a couple of positions where you're not quite sure yet?
I think there's a lot more that I'm not sure of that you would probably be counting guys as starters right now. And, just to put it in perspective, I can be the same football coach that everybody else would say, I'm going to play the best guy and I don't care, right? And that's true. right? The best person for the team is going to play. But I'll actually back it up with a few statistics for you. Last year, we had 9 freshmen that ended up playing for us while the game was on the line. The year before, we had 11 freshmen that ended up playing for us when the game was on the line too. And it's interesting, Pat, because if you go back to when we first got here in 2008, we started 11 freshmen that first year. And I said at the time, I hope that never happens again. Right? I do, but that's where we were. And to Alec's point, as long as we continue to bring in sharp student athletes who respect the university and love the game and understand the balance of both, then the rest of it sort of takes care of itself. But there's still so much that we don't know. And then there's things that, as a coach, I can do a really good job of trying to set things up the way I want them, and then all of a sudden there might be an injury that derails us or something like that. So, I know that 17, is it 17, Kelsey? 17 returning starters if you don't count the specialist, 18 if you count the specialist. I'm sorry, 19 if you count the specialist group. But as I've said, and I'll say it to the players in the locker room, I'll say it to anyone who cares to listen, none of those spots are guaranteed. Today is guaranteed to us, and we'll work really, really hard today, but we're not going to try and wish away the opportunity we have by projecting. Good question.
Your freshmen impressing you so far?
Just between us, they are. When you have a program that is as culturally focused, like Rachel, I could not imagine making a jump of this magnitude if we didn't have a culture as a team, as a department, as a university, as strong as we have. Like, I could not imagine it. Now, that culture and that brotherhood, that togetherness that these guys are talking about, that's what keeps us anchored. But it's also what makes the learning curve sometimes really tough, because they're coming from all these, some are from down the road, some are from across the country. They all come from different types of schools and that's the beauty of football. It's this gorgeous mosaic of what the country looks like in different parts of the country. But the first week is pretty tough. So the funny thing is that I told them at the very beginning, I said, guys, I love you. You're all very, very, very good football players. But sometime in the next 3 weeks, you're going to say to yourself, boy, I'm not that good. A year ago, I was able to do that, and now I can't do it. Well, that's because the guys that are chasing you are 241 pounds and run a 4.6. It's a little different than it was, right? So, yes, they have impressed. I would say they've lived up to the standard rather than impressed. But it could be a daunting task as a freshman, and these guys have done an amazing job teaching them the way. That it? Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You got
Thank
it.
you all.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Great job.